For decades, the world-renowned choreographer Paul Taylor has both confused and enthralled audiences. His unique style incorporates everyday gestures with conventional dance moves, and his work offers commentary on topics such as war, sexuality, and mortality. He's the founder of both the Paul Taylor Dance Company and Taylor 2, and has choreographed more than 135 dances seen in more than 65 countries on 6 continents. Taylor was invited to Penn State to receive the Institute for the Arts and Humanities Medal for Distinguished Achievement, the most recent in a long list of honors and awards that includes the Kennedy Center Honors, the National Medal of Arts, and the French Legion of Honor. We'll talk with him about his career, the life of a dancer, and about why Martha Graham dubbed him the naughty boy of dance. Here's our conversation with Paul Taylor. Paul Taylor, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you very much.
You're at Penn State to receive the Institute of Arts and Humanities Medal for Distinguished Achievement, and of course it comes in a long line of honors and accolades that you've received over the years. 3 Guggenheims, the MacArthur Genius Award, the government of France knighted you, and I could go on and on. But what interests me most about all of that is that when you decided to dance in your 20s, which was considered rather late to begin dancing, you knew that you were going to accomplish great things.
Excuse me. Yes. Well, I knew I was going to be I was going to be a dancer. I knew that. I'd made up my mind to that. But I had no idea I was going to get awarded something for it. So that was not in my dream and came as a surprise.
It was brave, actually, to have followed that, because you knew nothing about dance.
No, well, so it wasn't brave. I didn't know what I was in for.
You've talked about being alone throughout periods of your own life, and in fact say that there's a difference, and I'd like you to describe what it is for you, a difference between being alone and loneliness.
Oh yeah. Well, when I'm alone, it's usually by choice. I like solitude. I need a certain amount of solitude between when I'm working with people. And so I don't really suffer from loneliness. You know, it's solitude that I crave at times.
Well, you've said that the greatest isolation is success. So for you to do what you do, does that require you
Well,
to...
I don't know if it's the greatest, but it's certainly one of them. And success, as my work, and I have become more successful over the years, has become a kind of trap, really, in that it requires, the kind of things that I didn't expect I'd have to do when I decided I'd like to make up dances.
I read something that Martha Graham wrote, and of course you had a long and very, very interesting relationship with Martha Graham, but she said, "You do not even have to believe in yourself or your work. No artist is pleased. There is no satisfaction whatever at any time." And I was blown away that she should say that, and I don't think you feel that way.
I don't, I try to make dances that I think I'll like, but it seems that always that something in each dance that could have been better, I just haven't quite pushed it far enough. maybe.
You've said that if what happens on that stage is 60% of what you envision,
Yes.
you're pleased.
Yes, yeah, I can live with that.
And do you hit many of those? I guess they would be a home run.
Sometimes it's more than 60. Yeah. Yeah, I have good average. And there are others that know, and they won't be seen again.
Which is the most popular of the 135 dances? In terms of what other companies want to perform?
Oh, well, I don't know which is the most, but they rarely take the really
Difficult.
Difficult to subject rather than difficult to do.
And there have been a lot of difficult subjects. You've addressed incest and marital rape and war and
religion,
speaking in tongues. I mean, some really kind of controversial and are there more of those? Someone said, and I thought this was great, they said that it takes a great choreographer with the mind of a great novelist to write the kinds of pieces that you've written. And I'm wondering, are there topics that are in your back pocket that you're just waiting to bring to the stage?
Oh, there must be, because there seems to be a limitless number of topics that dance can deal with. Not all of them. It has to be visual somehow. So there must be some. Right now, I can't say
what it is.
I just made a new one, and I'm sort of pulling myself together to plan the next one. But the next one should be unpleasant subject.
Unpleasant? Is that sort of the yin and yang of Paul Taylor? Difficult and fun?
Yeah, there has to be a balance, and most of them are a combination in some way. Some more happy than sad, or more unpleasant than nice. But they're mixtures, basically.
You danced your last dance. You were a virtuoso dancer at 44.
Yeah.
Which, when I look at Merce Cunningham or Martha Graham, Martha Graham quit dancing at 74.
Right.
Merce actually danced till 70, but then had the courage to do a solo with, or a duet, I guess, with Mikhail Baryshnikov.
Yeah.
And Martha described giving up dancing as a kind of death.
Yeah, for her, yes.
But it wasn't for you.
Oh, it was a relief. Yeah, I mean, I had toured and danced for years and years, about 20, and then I was injured, or I got sick, and I couldn't, and it took me a while to get better, and when I got better, I just didn't want it anymore. I thought, I've had that. And in the meantime, I grew to like making dances, so that would be my life, you know.
You said that dancing hurt, and you've worked with other dancers who said it never hurt, but it hurt, it sounds, for you from the very beginning. Something always hurt.
You use the muscles so hard, so much that they get sore. You know, it's natural, and then they'll ease up. But the constant stress on them and the bones, you know, there's a certain amount of discomfort involved.
Your signature dance is probably aerial. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Oriole.
Oriole. I knew I was pronouncing that
That's
incorrectly. And you have since released that to your dance. I mean, your performers have been dancing that for a number of years. What's it like watching something that was yours passing to the next generation?
Well, when they're learning it, and I watch it in the studio, my body, my muscles remember. If I thought about it, I couldn't remember the steps or the sequences, but my body remembers it, and I'm right with them doing it again, inside. You've
had dancers who've stuck with you for years and years, and that makes me wonder, what's the peak year, generally speaking, for a dancer?
I don't know. I guess about that age. And generally they stay with the company 10, 12 years. So he's stayed longer than a lot of the others. Yeah.
And many of them go off and start their own
Oh
companies.
yeah, they start their own, or they go teach for me, or they become parents, or all the many things.
You had your own company, and you started it in 1954, and you continued to work with the Martha Graham Dance Company.
For a while, yes, I did, until my company was able to work more often and get more dates. And I danced with her, and I first toured around the world with her, a very long Asian and on tour.
The Orient Tour.
Yeah, the Orient Tour.
There's a wonderful story in your autobiography, Private Domain, where you talk about being on that tour, and she says to you, they add Israel to the lineup, which wasn't originally there.
Yeah.
And she calls you in and she says, Pablo, because she didn't call you Paul.
No, it was her nickname for me.
She told you that there wasn't enough money for you to continue with the troupe to Israel. And tell the rest of that story.
You see, Betsy de Rothschild was a friend of Martha's and was footing the bills for that tour, and was actually with us on the tour as wardrobe mistress, which she did very well. Rothschild banking money. And I knew that it wasn't Betsy that said they couldn't afford me. It was Martha playing a game with me to see what maybe my reaction would be, because then later she came and she said, well, Betsy's changed her mind and you can go with us after all. So I, me being me, said, well, I'm sorry, Martha, but I've already made a date to give my own concert in New York, and I'm leaving.
Which you made up at that point. You didn't have that dance yet.
That's right. I lied. But so did she.
Right. No, this is your ultimate
game. And we both knew we played this game. She was better at it than I was, I must say. But I knew what was going on.
This was your alter ego really saying to you, tell her it's time for you to make your own way.
Yeah.
And by your alter ego, and you write about this absolutely beautifully in Private Domain, Dr. Tacit.
Yeah, call him Dr. Tacit.
This childhood imaginary friend who's
imaginary
followed you.
friend from childhood, who I call Dr. Tacit. Yeah, and I run him through the book as just a device to say things about myself that I didn't want to say directly. It's a little tricky, but that's why Tacit was in the book.
But it's a real presence in your life.
Yeah, and also it was a name that I used when I designed costumes that I didn't want to take credit for. I used Tacit's name.
And then you get phone calls. Can Dr. Tacit design something for us?
Yes, that happened once.
Why did Martha Graham call you Naughty Boy?
I had done a concert. I thought it was just wonderful. It was based on natural movement, just plain pedestrian walking, running, different postures of the body, which are just poses. It had nothing to do with real dance steps, but I thought it was important to include this type of thing and present it as a dance. And it was a wonderful education for me. But the curtain opened, and within 10 minutes, the whole house had emptied. It was not liked. It was not appreciated. And so Martha heard about this and called me a naughty boy. That was
The audience felt gypped, right? Because part of it was, there was one number that was 4 minutes of pure stillness.
The duet. Nobody ever moved at all, and there was no music. The music was something that John Cage had written and was an actual score that pianist David Tudor sat at the piano and didn't play.
Well, this could have been...
But I felt silence and stillness in dance is an important element, you know, between the movement, that stillness can be very effective if it's performed properly.
In the early days, a reporter came up to you after a Martha Graham performance and asked you to define what is modern dance. And you said, well, do you know what ballet is? Well, modern dance is just uglier.
That's true.
You got
yes.
into a lot of trouble for that.
Martha, that was our first stop in Tokyo, and there was a bunch of reporters waiting at the plane when we got off. And the dancers were asked certain questions, and somebody asked me that, and that's exactly what I said. Modern's like ballet, only uglier. Well, Martha was there and heard that one, and I was not allowed to do any more press conferences ever.
No, you talked about Martha just now being better at this game playing than
yeah.
you were.
Oh, yeah.
You said she brought out the best in all of you when you were on stage.
Yes.
But behind the scenes, she sounds like someone who caused a fair amount of friction.
Oh yeah, yeah. She needed the friction around her. You know, she just needed it. You know, give her energy and who knows what else. But that the company was the relationships among the dancers were. We all liked each other, but Martha was always throwing a monkey wrench in to like make bad feelings happen.
Now, how differently do you do it? How do you keep your
I
troupe together?
I don't believe in it. I don't want that kind of friction around me. I'm not like that. I prefer the easy way. I try to keep them happy. I do whatever I can to make the working environment pleasant for them. You know, I do what I can. That's important to me.
When you're working on a piece, you talk about this Herculean ability to focus. Mm-hmm. The jackhammer can be outside the window, going, you know, a mile a minute. It is, right. And you can tune that out, and you can tune out the fire alarms and all of those things.
Oh, yeah.
It's the dancers, though, that you can't always tune out. What level of give and take is there that makes...
you don't ever want to tune the dancer
Right.
out.
Well, you said they can be a distraction, a good distraction, but they want to be heard. And
they want to help. And if I'm, you know, stuck and can't think of a step, I'll say, I don't know what to tell you to do here. And I'll put the music on. You just dance around and do what you want. And then they do. They like being part of that process, and they improvise. And sometimes I'll see something somebody's doing, a step or two, and I say, okay, maybe we can use that here, you know. And they help. They have input in other ways too, like dramatically tell them a situation, the type that they're supposed to be portraying, type of person. Some of maybe the background to that person, and kind of turn them loose. You have to give them movement and certain gestures, but there's a certain freedom for them in those instances. And sometimes I'm amazed at how well they can grab that idea and do something with it.
That's so different from your own experience working, for instance, with Merce Cunningham,
yes.
who didn't give you the emotional background or the
he
story.
never explained anything.
And also, he'd have you learn
He'd tell
something,
us we're not to listen to the so-called music,
which didn't fit with what you were doing
anyway. We don't rehearse to it. We just had these counts that he gave us. You know.
And so, regardless of what the music was, your muscle memory allowed you to...
We did our steps. You know, it didn't matter what the relationship was. Yeah, he believed in that. That was one of his theories.
And this chance, I read and just couldn't get over, preparing for a dance only to find out by chance you weren't selected to do the dance.
That happened to me, yeah. We'd all learned all of the parts in this one dance, and what part each of us was to do was decided on stage by drawing an object out of a hat. And my object never came out of the hat.
After months of rehearsal?
After I'd learned all these parts, which I was glad to do, I never got to do any of them on stage. So afterwards I said, you know, Maurice, is this always going to be happening? And he said, well, if you don't like it, leave. So I did.
But you remained friends?
Yes, yes, and I've admired him for many things over the years, sure.
You suffered, you said, always from stage fright. Not once you were on stage, but that minute before the curtain went up.
Oh, it's murder. Yeah, I never felt comfortable about that. Once I was in the lights and the curtain was up, I could forget the audience, you know, and just concentrate on what I was doing. And but then the curtain come down and I have to bow and be myself again, and that was hard. Still is. Yeah.
What's it like to sit in the audience and watch your dancers perform?
I like watching them. I like in the studio and I like them on stage. I enjoy watching them. I get a little tired of watching the dances over and over, but I like watching the people.
What has changed in your choreography? You've said, and I wonder if there are other things, is that you started to choreograph on the dancers' bodies. In other words, creating moves that are specific to this dancer.
Well, in a way, but at the same time, you're making the dance for an individual. I try to keep in mind that that part is probably going, or may be taught to many other generations of dancers. So it can't be too idiosyncratic to that original cast member. You know, there's a limit there, so it's a balance. Yeah.
You write in Private Domain, there's a 2-page chapter, and it's a letter to a young dancer. And it's in response, fictitiously really, it's the letter you might have written to the fan mail that you would get, and to mail you'd get from dancers eager to get a shot at it. And the gist of the letter that you send to this young dance hopeful is that they need to live the way your dog Dee Dee did. Dee Dee, which I loved, was Dee Dee stood for damn dog.
The best dog I ever had,
but Dee Dee lived moment to moment, and you said that was important because there are so many disappointments in dance, in this life as a dancer, and so few slim rewards.
Yes, comparatively, certainly not financially usually. But to live from moment to moment and to concentrate in that, be in that moment, and especially on stage in the moment, is very important.